Hey, it's the apple cider vinegar guy again, right? I always have an apple cider vinegar drink recipe for every kind of occasion, right? This one is for you to consume with lunch, and it is a sparkling ginger lemonade. Okay, not only does it taste good, but the whole idea behind it is to help you metabolize the lunch that you just ate, but to help potentially keep you from having a crash after lunch. You see, you should be taking the food that you're eating and creating energy from it. It shouldn't be bogging you down so that you have that mid-afternoon crash. We should be working the opposite way. So this is hopefully going to get you a little bit more out of your lunch. All right, so the cool thing is this one's sparkling. So in this case, I'm using some sparkling water. You don't have to use sparkling water, but I recommend it because it's gonna help break down some of the things that we're gonna use, but also just tastes really good. And lunchtime's one time that I would say, hey, go for it, have the sparkling water. Okay, so we'll probably go like 8-10 ounces or so. Then we move into the true star of the show, which is going to be 2 to 3 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar. Now the idea with the apple cider vinegar with lunchtime is that it is going to decrease the amount of glucose transporters. So what that means is in your gut, you normally have transporters that take carbohydrates or even small remnants of carbohydrates from foods that you eat and transport them. Okay, well, if you decrease the amount of transporters, you decrease the amount of carbohydrates that are getting into your body. So in essence, by consuming this with lunch, you actually decrease the amount of carbohydrates that you're actually effectively using in your body. It's a very good thing. But the other cool thing is the acetic acid that's in the apple cider vinegar. What it does is it helps take the carbohydrates that you consume and it helps those carbohydrates go into the muscle in the form of muscle glycogen. Now that is good because that gives you stored energy for later. We want the carbohydrates to go there rather than circulating through our bloodstream, making us have these rises and falls. So it stimulates what is called glucose 6-phosphate, which we don't need to go into detail now, but that's basically the mechanism in how you store the carbohydrates properly versus storing them as fat. Okay, so that's maybe 3-ish tablespoons. I don't know, I like my apple cider vinegar. So we're gonna rock with that. Okay, and the next one is the interesting one. Okay, this is where I would use bee pollen, okay? I'm a fan of using bee pollen because if you do not have a lot of B vitamins in your body, it's hard for your body to create energy. So bee pollen is very rich in B vitamins. So what happens is B3 specifically, okay, B3 supports what is called nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide. What the heck does that mean? It is the carrier of electrons for energy. So when we eat food, basically we're dismantling food into electrons. That's really what happens. Food isn't just magically fueling us. We break down the electrons and we create energy from those electrons. NAD carries those electrons. Well, B vitamins are precursors to NAD, so it's very important if we want to be able to utilize the energy from our lunch and actually put it to use. But what's cool, when we look at bee pollen itself, there was a study that was published in the journal Nutrients that found that it actually helped the mitochondria create energy better. Mitochondria is the powerhouse inside our cell that creates energy. So bee pollen has a lot of studies around it. So does propolis, which is similar. But we're going to use 1 full teaspoon of bee pollen, okay? So here I'm using a company called Beekeepers Naturals, which is my personal favorite, okay? They've got bee pollen, they also have bee propolis, which is like you can use in place of a throat spray and everything. It's awesome, awesome stuff. Very solid company who I use all the time, and you maybe have seen them in my like intermittent fasting videos. I use them after a fast all the time. So there's a special link down below if you wanna try them. You can save 15% off, but also free shipping on any orders over $60, which is a special option just for people that are watching my channel right now. So special link down below. So what's kind of cool is you can see the bee pollen kind of going to work there. It's sort of diffusing. You want to put it in. Another reason why I'm using sparkling water is it actually helps break down that bee pollen a little bit more. So the other cool thing is because we're having bee pollen along with our lunch, it has been demonstrated to activate P70S6K, which can help you utilize some of the proteins from your meal and potentially build some more muscle as a result. Okay, then we go down the road of ginger. Okay, so the bee pollen gives it a really nice, delicious taste, but then we have some ginger, which is gonna give it a completely different zing when you're talking about a lemonade. Okay, now we'll get to the lemon in just a minute too. I'm just gonna do a couple dashes here. You probably wanna go like a 1/4 teaspoon or so. Okay, now ginger contains something called gingerols. And what gingerols do is they help increase the utilization of glucose by the muscle. So again, draws it into the muscle, okay, but it also helps GLUT4 transporter. So it basically helps pull the glucose out of the bloodstream and puts it where it needs to go. Okay, so mix that up. Okay, and then we're almost done here. Then I'm gonna use the juice of a half of a lemon. Now I want the lemon in there because of what is called naringenin, okay, or naringenin, however you want to say it. Okay, now that alone is going to enhance glucose-stimulated insulin secretion. That simply means it's going to help the insulin do its job better. When we eat carbohydrates or any food really, we have a spike in insulin. It's the job of that insulin to open the cell doorway to allow the nutrients in. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that is a profound movement, okay? And that's going to allow the insulin to do its job better. So lemon plays a big role. So no matter what, I always recommend squirting some lemon in your water, okay, when you're eating lunch. Okay, that is mixing up really good. And then the last thing we want to do, you can add cinnamon if you want to. It does a similar thing to the ginger. I just put it there as an option. A couple squirts of some monk fruit. You can use stevia, you can use whatever you want. And since this is sparkling, look at that. It's got like a nice yellowy color because of the bee pollen in there. That is so good. It tastes like I made a super carbohydrate dense like honey tea lemonade, right? It tastes like it has honey in it because the bee pollen kind of gave it that flavor, but it's not honey, it's bee pollen, a whole different ball game. Super energizing, but then the lemon gave it a nice zing, and you didn't need much lemon because it combined with that apple cider vinegar. So, I mean, this just ended up being a delicious drink. So you could drink this with your lunch, but I'd recommend just having it right after your lunch. That way you're aiding in digestion, but you're making it so that you can utilize the energy from the lunchtime meal a little bit better. Yeah. Anyhow, as always, keep it locked in. Don't forget to check out Beekeepers Naturals down below in the description. That way you can, again, get that 15% off and free shipping on any orders over 60 bucks. If you're gonna use bee pollen in this recipe, I highly, highly recommend them. Anyhow, I will see you tomorrow. As always, keep it locked in.